The moment Delia's hand struck my face, I awakened. It dawned on me that we were the main characters in a romance novel. I was her greatest asset, helping her rise from a fallen heiress to the pinnacle of success. Her way of repaying me? Driving my mother to her grave and nearly destroying my company. In the end, this ungrateful wretch offered a mere apology, and I, like a fool, was ready to forgive and forget. To hell with that. From this day forward, I'm done playing the role of the dim-witted male lead. Ding! Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. I was in the middle of a meeting when Delia Andrews, my girlfriend, burst in furiously. She marched straight up to me and raised her hand to slap me. In that instant, time seemed to freeze, and a flood of information rushed into my mind. As I processed it all, with her hand inches from my face, I grabbed her wrist. "What's got into you?" She gritted her teeth, her eyes full of hatred. "Kevin, who gave you the right to sell my factory?" The content and tone of her words matched exactly what I just learned in that flash of insight. I didn't speak or let go of her hand, just stared at her coldly, waiting for the scene to play out. Soon enough, Johnny Williams appeared at the door, out of breath. "Delia, love, we were just joking earlier. We didn't think you'd take it seriously. Kevin's not selling the factory." The meeting room fell silent. Delia's anger dissipated instantly. Her eyes darted around as she quickly apologized. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have doubted you." I didn't respond, just released her hand and turned to my assistant. "Please escort Miss Andrews and Mr. Williams to the waiting room." After a moment's thought, I added, "Don't let anyone into my office." Previously, Delia had been free to come and go as she pleased, whether I was there or not. From now on, she would no longer have that privilege. "Certainly, Mr. Spencer," my assistant replied, glancing at Delia as she spoke. The two were ushered out by my assistant. I tapped the table. "Let's continue the meeting." In the original scenario, that slap had landed. It was the first time in my life I'd been slapped, and in front of an audience no less. I'd been humiliated and furious, but caught up in the drama, I still hadn't considered breaking up. After a few days of giving her the cold shoulder, I'd managed to convince myself, people only act out like that with those closest to them. It shows she doesn't see you as an outsider. From then on, Delia had pushed her luck, gradually crossing all my boundaries. But the real Kevin Spencer would never allow himself to love so pathetically, with no self-respect. Today, this had to end. As I walked into the meeting room, Delia Andrews and Johnny Williams were laughing together, arms around each other's shoulders. They clearly hadn't given a second thought to what had just happened. Seeing me enter, they quickly separated and sat up straight, like schoolchildren caught misbehaving. Since I'd been with Delia, I'd often felt jealous of Johnny. They were far too close for my liking. Recently, they'd been more restrained in front of me. But evidently, when I wasn't around, they were back to their old ways. Johnny was a salesman Delia had hired later on. The two had hit it off immediately, quickly becoming best mates. Delia never hesitated to assume the worst about me, but she always trusted Johnny completely. "Kevin, I'm sorry. I was too impulsive earlier. Please don't be angry with me." Delia apologized again, looking quite docile. "Let's break up," I said bluntly. Her face changed instantly. "What do you mean?" I leaned back against the sofa, my tone calm. "Exactly what I said. It's not as if you like me that much anyway. Is it? You're just putting up with me for the sake of your factory." Yes, I'd only just realized that Delia had agreed to be with me not because she liked me. Firstly, it was out of self-destructive behavior after learning her true love had gotten engaged. And secondly, she was afraid of losing my support. As soon as I finished speaking, a teacup came flying at my face. As I dodged it, I caught a glimpse of Delia's face, furious at having her thoughts exposed. The bone china teacup smashed against the wall with a loud crash. Shards flew everywhere. A cut appeared on my hand. Delia seemed shocked by her own actions. She hesitated for a moment, then rushed over. "Are you all right?" "I didn't mean to. It was always like this." She'd lose her temper, apologize, and then never change. And you couldn't hold it against her, or you'd be seen as petty. I moved away from her outstretched hand, saying coldly, "Don't touch me." Delia's hand froze, then slowly withdrew. She stood there, motionless. "I've decided to withdraw my shares from the clothing factory. I'll send you the share transfer notice later." The factory only had 2 shareholders, Delia and me. She had the right of first refusal. Delia's eyes lit up for a moment, then dimmed again. She couldn't afford it. Johnny stepped forward. "Kevin, this whole thing started because of me. I apologize. If you're angry, take it out on me. Hit me, punish me, whatever you want. But don't make things difficult for Delia. Where's she gonna find that kind of money right now? Even if you really want to withdraw, at least wait a year or so." I ignored him, throwing the blood-stained tissue into the bin. "You have 1 month to raise the money or find a new business partner," I said to Delia, my tone even. "If you can't manage that, I have the right to sell my shares to someone else." She considered the factory her lifeline, but she couldn't afford to buy me out. The only person she could turn to now was the one she trusted most. Back then, to avoid letting her true love see her in such a desperate state, Delia had chosen to ask me, a stranger, for help rather than him. But things were different now. With the factory's bright prospects, she had more confidence. I dug this pit, and she was sure to fall into it. Delia's eyes flickered, hesitating to speak. Finally, she said, "You're upset today. We'll talk about this another time," and started to leave, pulling Johnny along. I called after her, "One more thing. Your mother smashed up a luxury car while drunk yesterday. The owner wants £200,000 in compensation. She didn't dare tell you and asked me for help. Please let her know I can't assist." Delia whirled around. "Nonsense. She's already quit drinking." I let out a derisive laugh. "There's no point in pretending anymore. You know full well she hasn't quit, and you know I've been helping to clean up her messes." Her eyes darted away for a moment. She pressed her lips together, about to say something. Not giving her the chance to speak, I called out towards the door, "Please show these 2 out." Immediately, 2 security guards entered and escorted them out, gripping their arms. After paying this £200,000, Delia's savings should be wiped out once again. After tending to the wound on my hand, I went straight up to the CEO's office. "I heard you nearly got slapped?" my mum asked as she glanced up from her paperwork. "Your intel is spot on," I replied, taking a seat opposite her. It was wonderful to see her so full of life and radiant now. This time, I wouldn't let anyone harm her. "Do you also know that I've broken up with Delia?" I ventured. My mum's expression switched from disapproval to sheer delight in an instant. The usually composed businesswoman rushed around her desk to give me a big hug. "Son, you've finally come to your senses." Seeing her eyes well up, I felt a pang in my heart. My parents never approved of my relationship with Delia Andrews. They knew how arrogant and domineering she used to be, and how not a single person came to her aid when she fell on hard times. Even Judas had 3 good friends. That girl must have burned every bridge to end up in her current state, they'd say. But how could I have listened back then? Of course, I went above and beyond to help her at every turn. Even knowing it made my family the laughingstock of others, I persisted without hesitation. Delia was the daughter of a wealthy family. Though illegitimate, she was doted on by her father, which led to her becoming willful, selfish, and inconsiderate. Countless people had been hurt by her actions. 2 years ago, her billionaire father passed away. Delia and her mother, the former mistress, were left with nothing but a clothing factory that had been out of business for 2 years. Even the factory building was rented. Overnight, they fell from grace. Delia hoped to turn things around with the factory, but she had no money, no skills, and no friends to help. After hitting walls everywhere, this fallen heiress latched onto me. I admired her refusal to give up and invested money, manpower, and effort to get the factory running again. During this time, she accepted my confession of love. Just as things were looking up, Johnny Williams embezzled company funds for gambling, and I reported him to the police. Delia chased me to my mum's hospital room in a frenzy, trying to force me to drop the charges against Johnny. At the time, my mum had just been saved after being stabbed over a dozen times by a criminal. The commotion sent her back into the ICU, and she passed away that very night. Heartbroken and disillusioned, I broke up with Delia. She still resented me for what happened to Johnny and collaborated with others to sabotage several big projects I was working on. Later, she got together with her old flame, Neil Harrison. In less than a year, Neil had swindled her out of everything she had. She came back to me, and I chose to forgive her with just an apology and a few tears. I even helped her deal with Neil and the rest of her family. When I learned the full story, I wanted to go mad. I wanted to ask the author how much they hated me, to make me become like this for such a woman, forgiving even the most unforgivable betrayal. Thankfully, I can cut my losses now. As for Delia, she's on her own. As I left my mother's office, her assistant reminded me about the dinner meeting tonight. It was arranged a month ago. I had invited a few friends to discuss potential collaborations with the clothing factory. When I arrived, Delia Andrews was pacing outside the private room. Seeing me, she immediately came over. "They're all here already." She smiled brightly, as if nothing had happened earlier today. I avoided her attempt to take my arm but didn't stop her from entering with me. Inside, Delia naturally sat down beside me. Facing the teasing looks from my friends, I smiled and said, "I have 2 announcements to make today. First, Delia and I have broken up. Second, I've decided to withdraw my shares from the clothing factory. The transfer notice has been handed to Miss Andrews." The room suddenly fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. "Kevin, I didn't expect you to be so unprofessional," Delia accused me, her face ashen. "If we're talking about professionalism, your factory wouldn't even be in consideration for these gentlemen. They're here because of me, so I naturally need to clarify things. In the original story, it was with the support of these individuals that the small clothing factory became a hot fashion brand within 3 years." Delia was clearly displeased with my words. She raised her glass. "Even without Kevin, I'll run the factory well. It's definitely worth your cooperation." The others exchanged smiles. One of them spoke up. "Miss Andrews, since Kevin has no connection with you anymore, we have no reason to cooperate with you, either professionally or personally. We were interested in the factory with Kevin involved, not you or the factory itself." The others nodded in agreement. Delia stood there awkwardly, her face flushed. After a moment, she looked at me, hatred in her eyes. She slammed her glass on the table and ran out. My friends raised their glasses to me. "In that case, let's consider this dinner a celebration of your return to single life." I couldn't argue with that. The dinner ended. On the way back, I was resting in the back seat with my eyes closed. Suddenly, the driver alerted me. "Mr. Spencer, there seems to be a car following us." I looked back and saw it was Delia. She was turning her steering wheel, apparently trying to overtake us. I had a bad feeling and warned the driver, "Be careful. She might try to cut us off." Before I finished speaking, her car pulled up alongside us and suddenly swerved towards us. She did this several times. The driver was incredulous. What is Miss Andrews trying to do? What was she doing? Obviously, she was losing it after being humiliated at the dinner. I immediately called the police. Finally, her car suddenly swerved in front of us and stopped. Our driver slammed on the brakes. I held on to the seat in front, breaking out in a cold sweat. Thankfully, there were no other cars on this road, or it could have been disastrous. "Are you all right, Mr. Spencer?" The driver turned to ask me, still shaken. "I'm fine. Lock the doors, I've already called the police. Let's wait for them." Delia got out of her car furiously and walked towards us. Her face was flushed. She seemed drunk. She banged on my side of the car. "Kevin, get out. How dare you treat me like this? I didn't actually slap you, did I? And I've already apologized. What more do you want? How can you be so petty? You said you loved me. It was all lies." "Lies." Seeing no response from us, she got angrier, kicking the car door while cursing. The driver stared straight ahead, not moving. I watched the madwoman outside through the tinted windows. Thinking about how I almost bound my life to someone like this, I felt a chill. Fortunately, now I could watch her performance like a stranger. In less than 20 minutes, the traffic police arrived. Delia seemed dazed. Clearly, she hadn't expected me to call the police. I got out of the car. A strong smell of alcohol hit me. She had indeed drunk a lot. The police officer took out a breathalyzer and had her blow into it, confirming she was drunk driving. I explained how Delia had deliberately tried to run us off the road and provided the dashcam footage. The police also retrieved CCTV footage from nearby. Delia couldn't deny it. As a result, her driver's license was revoked, and she was detained for 5 days. As she was being taken away, Delia seemed to finally come to her senses. She looked at me in disbelief. "Kevin, you actually called the police on me?" I smiled and waved. Reporting illegal behavior is every citizen's duty. A week later, I ran into Neil Harrison and Delia Andrews, who had just been released from custody, at a pub. Things were finally moving in the direction I had anticipated. Delia, clearly inebriated, was clinging to Neil and professing her feelings. "Neil, I really like you. True love is indeed different." In the book, Delia only said like, when she came to me seeking reconciliation after Neil had swindled her out of everything. No matter how much I had coaxed her before, she had never been willing to say it. It was that hard-earned like that had softened my heart. Now, Neil's expression remained impassive, offering no response. I walked past them with my friend. Shortly after we had settled into our seats, Neil approached our table, leading Delia by the hand. "Mr. Spencer, it's been a while." He greeted me politely. Before I could respond, Delia, still draped over Neil, pointed at me. "Neil, he's the one who tried to take over the clothing factory. He even forced me to be his girlfriend. Can't you buy the shares and take them over?" Even in her drunken state, she was still slandering me, making me sound like a bully. She truly embodied the spirit of an ungrateful wretch. Although I no longer cared about her, I felt sorry for myself. Just 3 months ago, I had drunk an entire bottle of whiskey to resolve a problem she had created. Despite suffering from a stomach condition, I ended up in the hospital as a result. Looking back, it really truly wasn't worth it. "Mr. Spencer, I'll take over the shares you hold. Shall we sort out the paperwork when it's convenient?" Neil's expression remained unchanged, his manner polite and refined. "Let's do it tomorrow. Come to my office, and I'll have my secretary confirm the specific time." As we spoke, Neil's inquiring gaze remained fixed on my face. Seeing how readily I agreed, his smile deepened slightly. "All right, see you tomorrow then. We won't disturb you two any further." After they left, my friend scrutinized me closely. "It seems you've really moved on. Until today, I thought you were playing hard to get to test Delia." I retorted irritably, "Thanks a lot. Did you really think I was that love-struck? Weren't you? We all thought you'd been bewitched back then. To be honest, watching you being played like a fiddle by someone like that was really upsetting. I even started contacting spiritual advisors for help. Kevin, please don't even think about going back to an ex. Delia really isn't worth it. She's just using you. Only true friends dare to give such warnings at the risk of future resentment." My eyes welled up. "Don't worry. I'll never have anything to do with Delia again." The next afternoon, Neil Harrison, Delia Andrews, and Johnny Williams arrived at my office right on time. Neil was as amiable as ever, but the two behind him were a different story. They had an air of arrogance about them, as if they were here to buy out my company. During the discussion and signing of the agreement, Delia gave me cold looks and could barely bring herself to speak to me directly. As we finished, she stood up, leaning over the conference table to look down at me. "Kevin, I know you think the clothing factory's success is all thanks to you. Never mind, just watch closely. Without you, I'll make the factory even better." She was still the same, completely lacking in self-awareness. It was laughable. "That's right, one day we'll defeat you. Johnny chimed in with his own threat. I'll be waiting to see that, I replied, looking at Neil rather than at them. He stood up and extended his hand, a smile on his lips. Mr. Spencer, let's have tea together sometime. I shook his hand. Certainly. Now it was time to watch his performance unfold. The next time I saw Delia was at a cocktail party. While Neil was exchanging pleasantries with others, she approached me with a glass in hand. Kevin, thank you for selling your shares back then. It allowed me to find a better partner, and I don't have to worry about being schemed against anymore. Also, Neil and I are together now. He's the one I've always liked. You were right that day. I never had feelings for you. Even at a time like this, she was still trying to get under my skin. Congratulations on getting what you wanted, I responded coolly, unmoved by her words. You. Her smile faltered when she didn't get the reaction she was hoping for. Your boyfriend is looking for you. You'd better go, I said, pointing to Neil, who was clearly searching for someone. Her face lit up as she hurried back to him. Just as she reached Neil's side, the fire alarm went off. Delia reached out to pull Neil along, but he pushed her away. The usually composed man looked around frantically. Chaos erupted in the hall as people started rushing towards the exits. A few steps away, I saw a young woman about to fall. I quickly went to steady her, intending to help her out. Thank you. You go ahead. Don't worry about me, she said, wincing as she held her right leg. Without wasting words, I turned around, put her arm over my shoulder, and carried her on my back as I ran. As we reached the door, I heard her call out, Neil, I'm here. Fortunately, the banquet hall was on the ground floor, and we quickly reached safety. Just as I set the young woman down, Neil came running over. He thanked me. Thank you for saving my sister, Mr. Spencer. I waved it off. It's nothing, then asked the young woman. Are you hurt? I'm sorry if I was a bit rough. I had to move quickly. No, I'm fine. Thank you so much, she replied gratefully. Although I sensed something was off with her right leg, I didn't press the matter. Neil gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind his sister's ear and asked softly, Is your leg all right? It's fine. She shook her head. That's good. I inquired about the situation and learned that there had been a fire in the hotel kitchen, but it was now under control with no casualties. The three of us breathed a sigh of relief. Just then, Delia came stumbling over barefoot. Neil, why didn't you help me? She asked, her eyes brimming with tears. Gone was her earlier bravado. Now she looked utterly dejected. I'm sorry. My sister has trouble with her leg, and I was worried about her. I was just about to go back for you. Neil apologized gently. His sister tensed up the moment she saw Delia. She gave a quiet greeting and then stood silently to the side with her head down. I had thought Neil's last sentence sounded too contrived, but to my surprise, Delia said, All right, I forgive you. She glanced at the young woman, then looked at me with a tilt of her chin before moving behind Neil and jumping onto his back. Your punishment is to carry me. She forgave him just like that. Truly takes all sorts. A flash of disgust and coldness crossed Neil's face. Delia, perched on his back, looked at the young woman beside them. Rosie, you should just stay at home in the future. These kinds of events aren't suitable for you. See how you almost became a burden. The young woman softly replied, Okay. Hearing this, Neil's gaze turned icy. After a moment of silence, he said, Let's go home. Delia cheerfully swung her legs as she responded, Home it is. She really had no idea what was coming. 3 months later, I received Delia Andrews' wedding invitation. She delivered it personally. Dressed in designer clothes and wearing sunglasses, she had an air of superiority about her. She had completely reverted to the arrogant young lady she was before her father's passing. I'm marrying Neil Harrison. You're welcome to attend our wedding. In a way, you could be considered our matchmaker. If you hadn't pressured me, I wouldn't have sought his help, and I wouldn't have known he had already broken off his engagement. We wouldn't have ended up together. Oh, and don't bother with a wedding gift. Neil said no one needs to bring gifts. I'm honored to have brought you two together. I'll definitely attend, I said, gesturing for my assistant to take the invitation. I was certainly going to attend, not to witness their happiness, but to see the drama unfold. Given Neil's reaction on the day of the fire, something was bound to happen at the wedding. I wouldn't miss the chance to be at the forefront of the gossip. Mainly, I wanted to see what Delia had done to make Neil hate her so much. The book hadn't mentioned anything about this. On the wedding day, the venue was packed with guests. Delia was beaming with joy, and Neil wore an unusually bright smile. The ceremony proceeded smoothly. Just as they were about to exchange rings, suddenly, intimate moaning sounds filled the air. On the big screen, a man and woman were entangled in bed. Their bodies were pixelated, but their faces were clear. The woman was Delia, and the man was Johnny Williams. Delia panicked, clutching Neil's hand and explaining, "I was drunk that night. No, it's AI face swapping. Someone's framing me." But the scar on Johnny's forehead left no room for denial. I had overheard them chatting before the wedding, saying it was from an accident just 2 days ago. Neil stared at the big screen, expressionless. Then the scene changed, showing a 17 or 18-year-old Delia in a school uniform, shouting at a girl huddled on a windowsill. "Jump then. If you don't have the guts to jump, come down and strip for us to take photos." The girl looked up, and it was unmistakably Neil's sister. With tears streaming down her face, she pleaded, "Please, leave me alone." Delia impatiently instructed those around her, "Get her down." 2 boys approached the window, laughing. The girl looked at them, then out the window, and with a deep breath, she jumped. Delia tried to run down to turn off the big screen, but Neil held her tightly. After struggling for a moment, she seemed to realize something and furiously demanded, "It was you, wasn't it?" Neil didn't speak, just gave a faint smile. "So this is your surprise. You said you didn't care about what happened to your sister. Fine. Then I'll tell everyone that your sister's right leg was amputated after she jumped. Are you happy now?" Delia, humiliated and enraged, threw a tantrum on the spot. When I heard the word amputated, I felt a chill run down my spine. It was hard to imagine the pain that girl with the bright smile had endured, and she clearly hadn't fully recovered from the bullying, showing a conditioned fear response to Delia. Thinking about this, I felt a chill down my back. All this time, I had been aiding and abetting a monster. The spectacle ended with Delia fainting and being rushed to hospital. Having witnessed the entire scene, I was left with one overwhelming feeling. Having ever liked Delia was truly a stain on my character. A few days after the wedding, my friend came to gossip with me. Delia Andrews has been kicked out of the fashion company and owes a huge debt. She's selling her car and house now. TSK. She was always so suspicious of you, like you were a thief. But in the end, she was betrayed by the person she trusted most. Well, she deserves it. Neil Harrison is really ruthless. I thought that scene at the wedding was cruel enough, but it turns out he had something even more devastating planned. Though your ex-girlfriend only got her comeuppance from him. I glared at him. My friend quickly changed his tune. "All right, I'll stop. Did you know? Even at a time like this, Ms. Andrews is still trying to convince Johnny Williams to steal the money his parents-in-law gave them for a house to help her start a business. That fool actually did what she said. Luckily, his girlfriend reacted quickly and got the money back. Although it was unexpected, it was entirely consistent with Delia's character both in the book and in real life. It was her true nature. Did Johnny and his girlfriend break up? I asked, recalling the plot from the book. Of course they did. I heard his ex-father-in-law even gave Johnny a good thrashing on the spot. That's good. Another victim has escaped the fate written in the book. Although Johnny himself had no house, no car, and no education, the author had arranged for him to have a highly educated girlfriend from a well-off family. They were already at the stage of discussing marriage. In the original book, after Johnny became successful, instead of providing a better life for his family, he turned to gambling, losing everything. Later, it even developed into infidelity and domestic violence. After they finally divorced, the author arranged a redemption arc for him, and by the end they had reconciled. The author really gave all the tolerance and love to these two rubbish people, Delia and Johnny. Delia finally came to find me. Just as I was leaving in the morning, she rushed over with a tearful voice. "Kevin!" I stepped aside to avoid her, not stopping. She jogged alongside me. "Kevin, I only now realize that you're the person who's best for me. I was too foolish before. I didn't know how to cherish you." I frowned. In her eyes, am I some kind of recycling bin? "Ms. Andrews, I have nothing to do with you anymore." "No, I know you still love me. Don't be angry, okay?" I had nothing to say to her self-delusion. I walked a few steps to my car. Open the door, get in, lock it, all in one smooth motion. She ran over, trying to open the passenger door. I opened the window a crack, so narrow even a finger couldn't fit through. "You should go find Johnny. I think you two are quite suitable for each other." Surprisingly, Delia smiled when she heard this. "I knew you were just jealous. We were both drunk that time, that's why it happened. Don't worry, it won't happen again. After everything that's happened, I've realized I've truly fallen for you." Her smile and confidence made me sick. I stepped on the gas, leaving her to eat my exhaust. I thought after experiencing my attitude, Delia would surely know to give up. Who knew she would bring out the same persistence she had when asking for my help? She kept showing up at my office and home, begging for reconciliation. I used to think such persistence showed determination and resilience. It was the only positive quality I saw in her. Now, experiencing it again, I find it merely irritating. This kind of obsessive behavior only makes me despise her more. My parents and friends are very concerned. "Kevin, you absolutely must not go back to your ex." Even so, I had no intention of doing anything excessive to Delia. I believed the best state was for us to go our separate ways. Besides, she's now lost everything and her reputation is in tatters. There's no need for me to kick her while she's down and soil my own shoes in the process. That was until the private investigator sent me a video clip. It's so frustrating that Kevin is absolutely refusing to budge. He seems dead set against getting back together with me. The speaker was Delia, and opposite her sat Johnny Williams, whom I hadn't seen since the wedding. The two were drinking and chatting merrily. "This won't do. When will we be able to get the startup funds and make our comeback? Why don't you try playing the sympathy card again? I've heard that when an ex cries, the current partner always loses. How much more sympathy can I play for? Should I deliberately stand outside his door all night in the rain and then end up in hospital? That's not a bad idea. First the bitter, then the sweet. Once you're back together, you'll have it made. Whether it's starting a company or opening a factory, Kevin will arrange everything perfectly for you with just a word from you. What if he doesn't fall for it? Then we'll." Johnny's expression turned sinister. "Kidnap him, demand a ransom, and then do whatever we want abroad." Delia thought for a moment, then smiled and clinked glasses with him. "It's settled then. Kidnapping him isn't interesting enough. We should kidnap his family members, and then make sure he never finds the bodies. He'll be forever hopeful yet forever disappointed." The two beasts laughed as they drained their whiskey, then began to kiss and caress each other playfully. The video ended. It was the rainy season, and downpours could start at any moment. Exactly a week had passed since I saw that video. In the evening, I had just finished dealing with work matters in my study when I came out. Delia Andrews called. "Kevin, I'm at your front door. Will you come out and see me? If you don't come out, I won't leave." Along with her trembling voice, I could hear the sound of torrential rain through the phone. I hung up immediately and walked to the window. I saw Delia standing in the rain, shivering, completely drenched like a drowned rat. I sent a message to my secretary, telling him to postpone tomorrow morning's meeting to the afternoon. Then I leisurely went to get ready for bed. I slept soundly until I woke up naturally. The rain hadn't stopped. Delia wasn't where she had been standing. I took my time getting ready, then had breakfast before going out. The moment I opened the door, a soaking wet Delia fell into my arms. "Kevin, I feel awful," as I picked her up in my arms. A triumphant smile flashed across her lips, but she quickly suppressed it. At the hospital, she did indeed have a fever and needed an 4-drip. Delia held my hand and looked up pleadingly. Will you stay with me? I'm scared. After a moment's hesitation, I nodded. She smiled weakly. Thank you. After the 4 was finished, I took her home. It was in a council estate, run down and messy. Delia asked me to stop at the entrance of an alley. Can I text you often from now on? She asked cautiously before getting out of the car. All right. Her eyes lit up, and she continued. Then can we have dinner together sometime? Go home and rest well. This time I didn't answer her question. Delia's eyes dimmed. Just as she was getting out and closing the car door, I spoke up. Give me some time. She agreed happily. Okay. She waved goodbye to me and walked into the alley. I sat in the car watching until her figure disappeared. Delia, our game has begun. From that day on, Delia often sent me messages. Sometimes she told me about her health. Sometimes she sent photos of a flower, a tree, or a cloud. All sorts of little daily moments. It seemed like peaceful days. It was hard to imagine that someone like this could come up with such a vicious plan. At first, I rarely replied, but gradually I started responding more frequently. One day she sent a selfie asking if I liked the dress she was wearing. I replied, "It's missing a necklace." She quickly responded, "I really don't have one," accompanied by a funny emoji. Me, X Jewelry has new stock in. I have some free time after my meeting the day after tomorrow. Want to go take a look? This was the first time I had asked her out in a while. She couldn't hide her excitement. Sure. On the afternoon of the day, she sent a photo showing she had arrived at the store just before our agreed time. I called her. Something urgent came up. I'll be there in about an hour. Choose what you like first. Don't hold back. It's on me. Her voice on the other end of the phone was full of happiness. I don't know if it was for the jewelry or because this fish had finally taken the bait again. Regardless of what she thought, I waited patiently in my office. 40 minutes later, I received a call. Delia was in critical condition at the hospital. When I arrived, Johnny Williams and Delia's mom were already there. They were crying their eyes out. I stood to the side, staring at the operating room door. In the original story, it was my mom who was attacked in the jewelry shop. She was the only customer in the store at that time. When the thug came in brandishing a knife, the sales assistants all hid in the connected storeroom, leaving my mom locked outside. No matter how much she begged, no one helped her. It was a passerby who called the police. By the time the police arrived, my mom was barely alive. She was rushed to this hospital and saved. I never imagined she would ultimately die at Delia's hands. Now my mom is on holiday abroad. Delia has taken her place in all of this. When the operating room door opened, the doctor removed his mask. I'm sorry. We did our best. Delia was wheeled out covered with a white sheet. Johnny and Delia's mom threw themselves at her, wailing. I felt a mix of emotions. I hadn't wanted her to die, but I didn't regret it either. As long as she was alive, my family could have been harmed at any time. I heard the nurse say Delia had a rare blood type, and the hospital blood bank was short on supplies. Especially in this kind of emergency, there wasn't enough time. It's for the best, I suppose. Heaven works in mysterious ways. I attended Delia's funeral. When Johnny saw me, he swung a punch. Why did you ask her to go to that shop? I kicked him to the ground. I wasn't afraid of fighting him. After all, I'd had special training. He clearly wasn't satisfied and tried to get up for another go. But Delia's mom pulled him away. There weren't many people at the funeral. It was quite a somber affair. I was surprised to see Neil Harrison and his sister there. But thinking about it, it made sense. We left before the funeral ended and went for afternoon tea together. The conversation was pleasant enough, with an unspoken agreement not to mention Delia. As for Johnny, he hadn't had a proper job since being kicked out of the clothing factory. When my relationship with Delia was improving, I'd helped him get a sales job at a high-end gym. As I'd predicted, within days he was fooling around with a female client. I only had the private investigator gather evidence. As soon as Delia's funeral was over, I had him send it to the female client's husband. In the end, Johnny was beaten so badly he suffered brain damage and became simple-minded. His family chose to settle out of court, tempted by the money. Only then did I finally feel at ease. My parents' trip had also come to an end. I went to the airport to pick them up. To my surprise, there was a young woman with them. "Son, do you remember who this is?" my mom asked me. The young woman was also smiling, waiting for my answer. Of course I knew her. You could say we were childhood sweethearts. But 10 years ago, she went abroad to study and then stayed overseas for work. We gradually lost touch. "Rosie Clark, long time no see." I extended my hand. She took it. "Kevin Spencer, it's been ages. I'm back in the UK for work now. Please look after me." That evening, we all had dinner together. It was nice to find I still had a lot in common with my old friend. Back home, my mom told me, "Rosie's single, you know?" I knew what she was thinking. I smiled and replied, "We'll see what happens naturally." Looking at the dinner invitation Rosie had sent me on my phone, I felt a hint of anticipation. The people and events from the book were now far behind me. I could finally start a new life,